Hi and welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. And I'm doing this episode today from my old place that I now rent out for short-term accommodation because it's got air conditioning here. So it's kind of like a homecoming. And you know, speaking of that, I just wanted to say that from MTE team and myself, I want to wish all of our beautiful American Thriver family a wonderful Thanksgiving this week. Because we're heading into the holiday season, that's the reason for this Thriver TV episode today, because it's coming up really quick. And those of you who might be dreading holiday time, and I know how that used to feel for me, my heart goes out to you. I totally get it. Because when we've been narcissistically abused, we're usually still suffering the trauma of what happened to us. And maybe you're still in terrible battles with a narcissist over custody or property. Or perhaps your life now is in tatters and it bears little resemblance to the life that you thought you were meant to be living at this stage of your life. Holiday time for many people can be such a reminder that you're single, lonely, and devastated about the way your life has turned out. I remember feeling like that myself at holiday time, so down, so depressed, and barely functioning. I was like a zombie at holiday time, not knowing how on earth to engage and pretend like I was enjoying time with my family. Every time I'd walk into a store and I'd hear Christmas carols, and every time I saw Christmas stands and decorations, I felt like I wanted to run out of the place and burst into tears. The reminders were everywhere and I couldn't get out of my mind what the narcissist might be doing now and who he was with and how much I was missing him. And at the family events, all I could remember was when he and I had done them together, and the days when I thought I was blissfully in love and sharing memorable times with my life partner, who of course turned out to be my greatest enemy, my biggest aid, angel in disguise posing as an abuser. And I know so many of you are feeling these feelings as well, and so much more, especially if you're sharing children and those sorts of things. And I know that many of you, like my previous self, just want the holiday period to be over as soon as possible. So, do we just ride it out in the best way we can, or is there another way to deal with this? I promise you there is another way. And in fact, holiday time can be the most powerful and incredible time to work on yourself, turn a massive corner, and start powerfully coming out the other side. This may seem totally impossible right now because of the level of trauma you're feeling about these festive times, because of many reasons, possibly including these ones. Number one, you may be out of your routine and feel like you've now got too much time on your hands and you can't distract yourself with like your work routine, stuff like that. And number two, you know you're going to be triggered. These triggers could be your children are not going to be with you and are spending time with a narcissist and his or her new family. Or maybe you have to spend time with narcissistic family members and you know that it's usually horrible, or you're just so depressed and in trauma that you can barely stand being around people, let alone having to participate and face them for celebrations. I want you to know that these two things, having extra time and being triggered, are two of the biggest pluses in our lives when we embrace Thriver recovery in quantum ways. Let's talk about the triggers first. There may be those of you in this community who are new to all of this and presently really don't like the painful and traumatic emotional triggers that erupt within us after narcissistic abuse. They can happen from an outer event like seeing the narcissist's car, hearing their name mentioned, seeing something or someone which reminds us of them, which at first is pretty much everything. Or we simply feel incredible pain coming up from within us, like missing that person or remembering the terrible, obscene things they did to us that were beyond cruel. So the old way of trying to deal with that is very painful and ineffectual. This is trying to think our way out of it. And why this doesn't work is because neuron scientists now know that when we have inner trauma, emotional trauma, our brain pathways which are accessible are only those within the range of the trauma. The brain follows the body, which means we're going to be doing a whole heap of stinking thinking that is only going to traumatize us more. So because this way has been so terribly ineffective, we then have believed, I have to stop thinking about it because that only makes it worse. So I'll distract myself from it. Netflix is really cool for that, isn't it? So we try to do the ostrich thing. We pop our head into a bucket of sand, and when we pull it back out, we hope all of our troubles have gone. And for most of us throughout our life, this kind of worked, even though we didn't realize that the trauma that we were never going directly to in order to release it from our being was always stuck in there, doing push-ups in the background, waiting for a gap to erupt through again. Yet, that's it. That's what it is. It's a geyser waiting to burst from beneath the ground, which is the metaphor for within the subconscious, up and out into the air, which is a metaphor for breaking into consciousness. And this is exactly what triggers are. They are unattended to wounds that show their presence in a way so that we know they exist. Now here's the thing. After narcissistic abuse, the ostrich thing doesn't work anymore, because the trauma is so activated within us that there are no ways to distract ourselves from it. Have you noticed that? Even Netflix doesn't work, because the waves of trauma are like a rolling pin with nails in it going up and down your spine constantly. You literally feel like this is some kind of inner being takeover. It's like some screaming alien inside you that just won't go away. And please know, I'm not making light of this because it is beyond horrible. In short, there just isn't any relief from this. And here is the big thing about this thing. We are called finally to do the one thing that these traumas have been screaming out for all of our life. Well, first of all, they were screaming out for the love, attention and validation from our parents that we possibly didn't get enough of, for us to believe that we were lovable, worthy and capable. But now that we're adults and no longer children, this is not our parents' job. Now there's only one person who can do this job, ourselves, which means it's time to stop beating ourselves up with stinking thinking, or to turn away from ourselves and self-abandon with Netflix. Please know I'm not knocking Netflix. I actually really like it, okay? But it finally is time to turn inwards and love and heal ourselves back to wholeness. A person, and become a person who is self-loving and self-accepting and a generative source to self in life. Because it's only through this journey that the pain durably stops and our true life begins. And the great thing is, with quantum tools, we can do that without the stinking thinking, because we have an effective healing system, quantum freedom healing, that is easy to work with. That's what the components in the NARP program is. They bypass our mind, go straight to the trauma, draw it from our cells and release it out of our body so that the trauma simply doesn't exist anymore. And when we do this, the results are so much more far-reaching than just getting relief from the big trigger that happened now. What do you think these far-reaching positive consequences are? Those of you who are NARPers know exactly what they are because you're living them. this is what happens. A topic that was hurting, that you were handing power away and feeling traumatized over, you just don't anymore. You have completely changed in how you feel about this topic, and you now feel empowered rather than disempowered when you think about it. Okay, so a cool example is this. You may feel total trauma over the narcissist's new partner and have all the terrible feelings about her being better than you. And what if he or she, if you know it's a different gender, has changed this person now that the narcissist is different with them, and you feel alone, discarded and worthless. After tracking these traumas in your body and finding that they came from the childhood origins of feeling discarded by and worthless to a parent, and you release all associated trauma on this topic, the trauma from now and what you've experienced as a child, what happens is you emerge from that deep quantum healing work on yourself and discover that you have no emotional charge on this topic of the new partner whatsoever anymore. Instead, you're just grateful that you got out of the relationship and that you're healing your old traumas and patterns. And this shift happened with doing a few modules, and it only took a few hours of work on yourself. And you realize that this previously may have taken you decades to get over. And I promise you, there's so many people like that I've met, that they haven't got over it. It's either taken them decades and they're barely there, or they're nowhere near there. Because when we try to do this the old way, which is decades of cognitive therapy or just trying our own thinking to get resolution, we may not have been able to heal at all. So how we do heal the Thrive Away, what it teaches us is this, that we must access the emotional trauma that is inside us, load it up and release it to get a shift out of it. Because by doing this, we automatically have space inside us where that trauma once was, and the neuron pathways in regard to the relief and the resolution of that previous trauma become immediately accessible to us once our body shifts, because the brain follows the body. So we immediately shift from stinking thinking into healthy, solid and self-loving thinking. But there's even more benefit than that. Wait, there is more, and it's not steak knives. It's much better than steak knives and Netflix, actually. What it is this even greater benefit. That we know, I'll explain it to you, and I really want you to just tune in and feel this, because then you're going to get it. When we no longer feel and think about something in a certain way, we've changed. We haven't just changed how we're going to do something in the future. You know, like when we say, okay, I get it, I'm never doing that again. And then, we often do. Instead, we literally have changed our mind because our mind is changed. Our mind is changed because our being is changed, which means the mind automatically followed. There was nothing else it could do. We shifted. We're no longer who we used to be being before that shift. We're now a different being, which means we will be different. Now this is it. This is the key thing. That means, that level of shift means the subconscious pattern within us has now changed. To change our behaviour, we have to change our inner subconscious beliefs. And to change the beliefs, you have to change at a beingness level. And what superglued that belief in place is trauma. That trauma has to leave your being before the belief can change. So, this is where the really exciting stuff is. The juice of true change is. And I promise you, it isn't anywhere else. When we change at the beingness level, it means our love and relationship trajectory, how our imprint has just permanently shifted from an unhealthy one to a healthy one on that topic that we have shifted. It's changed because our traumas, as the example we've been using, the traumas about being discarded and feeling worthless have shifted. They no longer exist, which means we're not going to be attracted to and attractive to people who treat us as worthless and discard us again. In fact, these people will feel quite repugnant to us because our inner beings are no longer a match. It means that our trauma, their behaviour, is not a match because we don't have our trauma on it anymore. There is no going back on every wound we successfully shift, meaning we don't go back into repeating the patterns of our childhood that have been ingrained within us all of our life, like heat-seeking missiles, bringing about the same traumas that have been trapped in our being all along. Okay, so what does all of this have to do with holiday time? Heaps, because you're going to have the crap triggered out of you. That's what a holiday time does when we're suffering from narcissistic abuse symptoms. In so many ways, everything we've talked about, you know, if you're still connected to a narcissist, narcissists act out. They love wrecking holiday time. If you're no contact, you're going to feel like you're missing. You've got more time to think about it. It's going to be so many reminders that are going to trigger you and hurt. So holiday time is a great source of triggers. And in holiday time, you could possibly have the time to truly commit to healing yourself. All of the incredible shifts and benefits, I promise, don't happen while you're watching Netflix. It's not going to happen unless you seriously commit to turning inwards and doing the inner work to go into these triggers, track them back to the trauma origins, load up the dense energy and release them from your inner being and bring in source healing to replace them. That's how you get powerful instant shifts that change who you are being into your true self. So this means that you can heal and evolve yourself beyond previous traumas and painful patterns. So how do we know that we've healed something? There's only one way to know: when we no longer receive any triggers about it. When we can think about something that used to be so painful and now we feel nothing on it at all except peace, solidness, and a deep inner abiding love for and a confidence within ourselves, that's when we know it's gone. There's no trauma there anymore. That is the thrive away. That's what we're going for. So take it from me. I went from being catatonic under a blanket on my brother's couch at holiday time to being, even when I still had the trauma inside me, I became excited about having the time to work on my inner stuff and blessing and accepting every one of my triggers as a divine signal allowing me to know what I could release next. And I used to jot these down on a notepad if I couldn't go and do a healing on it straight away. And then as soon as I had time to myself, I went home to my couch and committed to the most important mission that I have ever applied myself to. Finding out, going inwards, connecting to, and then getting the traumas out of my body that were keeping me drowning in my own depression, anxiety, and emotional devastation, in order to make space for life force, love, joy, and expansion instead. This is the most important work any of us are ever going to do. We're like birds with broken wings doing our necessary time in the bird hospital so that we can come out and not just fly again, but soar like we've never flown. This holiday time is so important. It's an opportunity not to be missed if you're serious about freeing yourself. And not only are you going to be setting up your new year in the most spectacular ways, you're going to be setting up your entire life as well as the lives of generations after you, for your kids and your kids' kids. The positive consequences of your deep inner reprogramming of yourself are that far-reaching. So I can't recommend enough to go get it this holiday time if you've got time to do that. So, you know, and the thing is, when we really commit to ourselves, holiday time or not, we make the time, because our inner being is the engine of our entire life. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this video, and if it resonated powerfully with you and you know it's your time to heal, you can sign up to my free 16-day recovery course, which includes an invitation to a healing workshop with me, a set of ebooks, and so much more. So to access all of this, all you have to do is click the link at the top right of this video. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you like and subscribe so you get notified as soon as each new video is released. So until next time, keep healing, keep smiling, keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.